Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination. No one expected it. When billionaire innovator Elon Musk took his seat across from Jimmy Kimmel, the plan was simple: a light-hearted chat about cars, rockets, and his newly announced political party. But in under 20 minutes, the conversation derailed into one of the most heated late-night clashes in recent memory. The smiles faded, the jokes stopped, and before the cameras cut to commercial, Elon Musk, one of the most powerful and influential figures on the planet, was being escorted off the set. What happened in those tense electric moments left the audience gasping, the internet on fire, and both men's reputations under the microscope. This is the full story of the night Jimmy Kimmel Live went from comedy to confrontation, and how it ended with Elon Musk kicked out live on air. The lights bathed the Jimmy Kimmel Live stage in warm blues and golds as the studio audience applauded wildly. Jimmy Kimmel, grinning as always, leaned into the desk microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, you know him as the man behind Tesla, SpaceX, and about a dozen tweets that broke the internet, Elon Musk." Elon walked out to thunderous applause. Dressed in his usual understated black jacket and white shirt, he gave a small wave, almost shy compared to his larger-than-life reputation. He shook Jimmy's hand, sat down, and offered a faint smile. For the first few minutes, it was smooth sailing. Jimmy teased him about the Mars colonization timeline, Elon joked about building an electric pogo stick, and the audience chuckled at his deadpan delivery. This was exactly how late-night interviews usually went: light, playful, and carefully steered. But then Jimmy pivoted. "So, Elon," Jimmy said, leaning forward, "I've got to ask you about this new political party you've announced, the Forward Future movement. Now, I know you say it's about unity, but let's be honest, isn't this just another billionaire trying to play politics?" The audience gave a small ooh, sensing a shift. Elon kept his composure. "Well," Elon said slowly, "I think it's more about competency. I've been looking at how things are run, and I see inefficiencies everywhere. Government is decades behind technology. My idea is to create a movement that puts actual problem solvers in charge, not career politicians." Jimmy raised an eyebrow. "Problem solvers, or people who agree with you?" A ripple of laughter passed through the audience. Elon didn't smile. "If we focused on outcomes instead of political games," Elon replied, "we'd actually get somewhere. It's not about me, it's about building a country that works." Jimmy smirked. "That's noble, Elon, but Elon, you're talking about a country. This isn't a tech company you can run like Twitter. You can't just fire half the government on day one and expect it to run smoother." The jab landed harder than Jimmy intended. Elon's tone shifted. "I'm not saying we run the government like a company. I'm saying we stop running it like a failing bureaucracy. If you were hiring engineers to build a rocket, you wouldn't pick the guy who's never touched a wrench. So why do we let people run trillion-dollar budgets who've never created anything?" The crowd reacted. Some cheers, some laughs, some murmurs. Jimmy leaned back, clearly ready to push. "Look, Elon, I'm all for new ideas, but the last time a guy came along and said, 'I alone can fix it,' it didn't end so well." Elon didn't miss a beat. "That's the difference, Jimmy. I'm not saying I can fix it alone. I'm saying we all can. But we need to stop electing people who are basically professional speechwriters." The crowd clapped, but there was an undercurrent of unease. In just 10 minutes, the interview had shifted from banter to a miniature political debate, and while neither man had raised his voice yet, the battle lines were forming. Jimmy was framing Elon as an overreaching billionaire stepping into politics without understanding its nuance. Elon was framing Jimmy and, by extension, the political establishment, as outdated and dangerously complacent. The laughs were fewer now. The silences between responses were longer. The audience, once relaxed, now leaned forward in anticipation. Something told them this wasn't going to be just another celebrity interview. What neither man realized was that this was only the first crack in the dam, and by the end of the night, it would burst wide open. Jimmy shuffled his notes but didn't glance at them. His eyes stayed locked on Elon, a sign that the pre-scripted interview was gone. "So, Elon," Jimmy began, "you're saying this forward future movement is about problem solving? But here's the thing. You've got a track record of, let's call it, unconventional leadership. You run Twitter by, what, tweeting polls to decide company policy? How's that supposed to work for a whole country?" The audience laughed. Elon's lips twitched, not into a smile, but into a tight line. "I think listening to people directly is a lot better than pretending to listen while doing nothing," Elon replied. "In tech, if you don't ship a better product, you lose. In politics, you can fail for decades and still get reelected." Jimmy tilted his head. "But politics isn't a product, Elon. You can't just ship a new country. You've got real people with real struggles, and they don't all think like you, or me." Elon leaned in, voice steady, but sharper now. "And that's exactly why it's broken, because we've accepted that we can't improve it. If we approach the economy, healthcare, and education like solvable engineering problems, we'd get results." There was a smattering of applause, but Jimmy jumped on it. "Okay, but you're acting like this is just bad software. People aren't code. And when billionaires start talking about fixing systems, history shows it usually means they're fixing it for themselves." The audience laughed again, but this time there were audible oohs. Elon's gaze didn't break. "That's a lazy argument, Jimmy. My companies have created hundreds of thousands of jobs, advanced renewable energy, and pushed space exploration forward for everyone. If I wanted to fix things for myself, I wouldn't bother with this at all. Politics is a headache." Jimmy leaned back, grinning, but there was steel in his tone now. "Maybe it's a headache because it's not a boardroom where you're the final word. Maybe it's a headache because you can't just tell Congress, 'You're fired,' and install your engineers instead." The audience erupted in laughter. Elon's jaw tightened. "And maybe it's a headache because people like you keep treating politics like a late-night comedy segment instead of something that actually matters." The applause this time was mixed, loud, but split between cheers and murmurs. Jimmy didn't miss a beat. "Oh, it matters, Elon. It matters a lot. Which is why I'm not thrilled about the richest guy in the world deciding he's the voice of the people. Because last time I checked, most people don't own rocket ships." That landed. The crowd howled. Elon let the laugh wash over him without reacting, then said flatly, "And most people don't host a TV show in a $40 million studio, Jimmy. But you still talk like you know their struggles." That silenced the laughter for a moment. The audience shifted in their seats. Jimmy's smile faltered just a hair before returning. "Touché," he said. "But here's the thing. I'm not asking to run the country. You are." Elon's voice dropped lower. "I'm not asking. I'm building something. People can choose to join or not. That's democracy." Jimmy folded his arms. "And when democracy says no, what then? Do you buy the country and rebrand it?" The crowd roared, but this time Elon didn't even look amused. He leaned forward, hands clasped, speaking slowly. "I'm not here to be the punchline, Jimmy. I'm here because we're running out of time to fix things. The climate, the economy, our infrastructure, they don't care about political parties. They care about whether we act or not. And right now, we're not." There was applause, real, sustained applause, but also a lingering tension in the room. Jimmy's comedic jabs were bouncing off now. Elon wasn't playing the game. Jimmy gave a small shrug, but his voice carried an edge. "Look, I respect what you've done in tech, but politics isn't a launch pad. It's a minefield, and I just think it's dangerous when someone who's never walked through it decides they're the only one who can." Elon shook his head slightly. I've walked through tougher." The air was electric now. The audience could sense it. The temperature had risen, and they were no longer watching a celebrity interview. They were watching two men from completely different worlds, each convinced the other didn't understand the stakes. And though neither of them said it out loud, everyone could feel where this was heading. Someone wasn't going to make it to the end of this segment. The tension had been steadily building, like two tectonic plates grinding under the surface, and now it was ready to erupt. Jimmy leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised, a faint smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Elon, I get that you want to shake things up politically," he said, "but you've got to admit, when you create a party out of nowhere and call it the Innovation Party, it sounds less like democracy and more like a sci-fi cult." The audience laughed, hard, the kind of laugh that stung. Elon's smile froze for a split second before he responded. "Jimmy, if you think encouraging technological progress, space exploration, and a smarter economy is a cult, maybe you've gotten too comfortable making jokes about people actually trying to solve problems." The air in the studio tightened. Jimmy, sensing the shift, doubled down. "Elon, I'm just saying, you've been talking like you want to save the country, but lately it feels like you're auditioning for president of Mars instead of fixing Earth." This time, there was a mix of chuckles and awkward silence from the audience. Elon's eyes narrowed slightly. "Do you think the people who vote for you or your political friends have done anything as impactful as what we've achieved with Tesla, SpaceX, or Starlink? Or do they just talk and make empty promises?" Jimmy didn't flinch. "I think the difference is, Elon, politics isn't a tech startup. You can't just fire half the Senate and optimize the workflow. These are real lives we're talking about. You can't code your way out of ethics." The audience oohed at that one. Elon leaned forward now, his voice sharper. "Ethics? Jimmy, you make millions off mocking politicians, celebrities, and everyday people, and you're lecturing me on ethics? I'm building the infrastructure for the future, while you're reading cue cards for punchlines." Gasps swept through the crowd. The chemistry between them had shifted from playful ribbing to outright hostility. Jimmy put his hands up in mock surrender, but his tone was anything but neutral. "Oh, I'm sorry, Elon. I didn't realize you were single-handedly saving humanity between tweeting memes and tanking stock prices." The audience roared, some with laughter, others with disbelief. Elon's jaw clenched. "It's easy to sit there and make jokes. It's harder to actually do something. You don't risk anything, Jimmy. You just sit here." The words landed like a punch. The crowd murmured. Even Guillermo, Jimmy's sidekick, looked like he wanted to sink into the couch. Jimmy's smile was gone now. "You know, Elon, there's a reason politicians and entertainers don't take you seriously in politics. You think you're above the system, but you don't seem to understand people, regular people, the ones who can't afford Teslas or Starlink subscriptions, the ones you claim you're helping." That was the tipping point. Elon's voice rose. "I understand people very well. That's why millions follow me, because they're tired of the same recycled ideas from the same recycled people. If my political movement scares you, Jimmy, maybe that's a good thing." Jimmy leaned in, his voice low and cutting. "No, Elon, it doesn't scare me. It just shows me you don't want a conversation. You want control." The studio was dead silent now. Elon stared at Jimmy, breathing a little heavier, as if deciding whether to keep going or to walk right then and there. But he didn't move, Not yet. The audience could feel it. The volcano hadn't fully erupted, but it was coming. This was no longer a friendly interview. It was a battle over vision, ego, and the line between innovation and power. And both men knew Act 4 was going to get ugly. The moment that would end the interview began quietly. Jimmy leaned back in his chair, hands folded, like a man confident he had the upper hand. "Elon," he said, voice steady but biting, "you've built rockets, cars, satellites, amazing stuff. But maybe building a democracy is a little more complicated than building a billionaire's playground." There was a quick laugh from a few audience members, but most people just froze. It was the kind of jab that didn't need volume to land. It cut straight to the ego. Elon sat forward, placing both hands on the desk between them. His eyes locked on Jimmy's, the playful glint gone entirely. "Billionaire's playground, Jimmy. I've risked my fortune and reputation on ideas that have moved humanity forward. When's the last time you took a risk that didn't involve a celebrity roast?" The audience gasped. Jimmy raised his eyebrows in mock surprise, but his voice carried a warning edge now. "Careful, Elon. You're starting to sound like one of those tech guys who thinks he's too important to be questioned. This is a talk show, not a shareholder meeting." Elon didn't miss a beat. Maybe that's the problem. People think politics should be entertainment. But this country is falling apart while you're busy making punchlines out of anyone who actually tries to fix it. Jimmy's smirk vanished. He shifted in his seat, leaned forward, and fired back. "And maybe the problem is guys like you, thinking you're the hero in a story where no one asked for you to be the main character. You can't buy your way into the hearts of voters like you buy a company." The audience murmured, sensing this was no longer a controlled exchange. Elon's voice dropped, each word sharper than the last. I don't need to buy my way in. I've already earned people's trust by delivering real results. You deliver monologues." The tension snapped. Jimmy turned in his seat toward the audience, palms out. "All right, Elon, I think we're done here. You came on to promote your political party, but you've turned it into a lecture about how everyone else is the problem. Maybe you should save the speeches for your campaign rallies." Elon leaned back, shook his head, and chuckled. But it wasn't amusement. It was disbelief. "No, Jimmy. What you mean is I stopped playing along with your little TV theater. I'm not here to make you look smart at my expense." Jimmy tilted his head, calm but firm. "Then maybe you shouldn't be here at all." And that was it. Elon pushed back from the chair, the legs scraping loudly across the floor. The sound cut through the air like a blade. The audience gasped as he stood, straightened his jacket, and looked down at Jimmy. "You know what?" Elon said, his voice low but carrying. "This is exactly why people don't trust the media anymore. You can't handle anyone who doesn't fit your narrative. Good luck with your ratings." Jimmy didn't get up. He just gestured toward the wings of the stage. "Security, please escort Mr. Musk out." The crowd erupted into chaos, some booing, some cheering, all on their feet. Two stagehands moved quickly toward Elon, but he didn't resist. He simply turned, walking toward the exit with deliberate slowness, pausing once to glance back at Jimmy. "History won't remember the jokes, Jimmy, just the people who tried to change things." The audience's noise swelled as the cameras caught every step of his departure. Jimmy sat there, composed but visibly rattled, shuffling his cue cards as though trying to regain control of the room. Guillermo leaned toward him and muttered something off mic, but Jimmy just forced a laugh and said, "Well, that was different." The broadcast cut to commercial, but the damage and the clip was already viral in the making. Within hours, Elon Musk walks off Jimmy Kimmel would be trending worldwide. And the world wasn't done reacting yet. By the time the credits rolled on Jimmy Kimmel Live that night, the internet had already detonated. Clips of Elon Musk's walk-off were everywhere. TikTok edits with dramatic music, Twitter threads dissecting every eyebrow raise, Instagram memes framing it as the night Jimmy lost control. The hashtags divided into camps, hashtag Team Elon and hashtag Kimmel owned on one side, and Buy Elon and Sit Down Tech Bro on the other. Each camp was armed with their own 30-second snippet of the clash, stripped of context and loaded with outrage. On the political talk shows the next morning, it was open season. Fox News ran with the headline, "Elon Musk stands up to late-night bully." CNN countered with, "Musk's meltdown, billionaire storms off after tough questions." The truth was somewhere in between, but no one was looking for it. Jimmy's monologue the next night was a masterclass in comedic damage control. He recapped the exchange with hand-picked clips, dropping sarcastic one-liners like, "I guess the escape velocity on this show was a little too high for Elon." The audience roared, but the laughter felt defensive. Even some regular viewers commented online that Jimmy seemed rattled. Meanwhile, Elon leaned hard into the controversy. His first post after the walk-off simply read, "You can't cancel a movement. Hashtag the Freedom Party." It racked up over 2 million likes in under 4 hours. He appeared on a podcast the following day, painting the incident as proof of mainstream media hostility toward outsiders. "This is why I started my own political party," he said. "We can't keep letting the gatekeepers decide who gets to speak." The clip went viral again, this time on conservative-leaning social media, where Musk was hailed as a 21st-century revolutionary. But the backlash was equally fierce. Late-night writers, Hollywood actors, and comedians rallied behind Jimmy, framing Musk's exit as proof that billionaires crumble when they can't control the conversation. Sarah Silverman tweeted, "If you can't take a joke, maybe you shouldn't run a country." Even some of Musk's own fans admitted the optics weren't great. "Love the guy, but walking off wasn't the move," one Reddit thread read. "Gave Kimmel the win." Political analysts saw deeper implications. Pundit Van Jones on CNN said, "What happens on Kimmel's stage wasn't just entertainment. It's the collision of Silicon Valley ego with the messy, unpredictable world of democratic politics. If Elon can't handle a late-night host, how's he going to handle Congress?" But others argued that the moment could fuel his campaign. He's tapping into a base that already distrusts the media. Walking off only makes him more of a martyr in their eyes. Conservative commentator Ben Shapiro said, "Brands even got involved, sensing free marketing." Wendy's tweeted, "We'd never walk off Jimmy's show unless he badmouthed fries." The post got 600K likes. In the days that followed, Musk's polling numbers for the Freedom Party saw a noticeable bump in online surveys, but so did negative sentiment from independents. Political strategists warned that viral fame doesn't always translate to votes. Behind the scenes, ABC executives reportedly weren't thrilled, not because they were on Elon's side, but because the chaos had overshadowed their carefully planned segment lineup. One anonymous producer told Variety, "We booked these guys for a reason, to entertain, not to blow up our ad breaks." As for Jimmy, he avoided speaking about Musk outside of his controlled monologue, but insiders claimed he was furious about the way the walk-off was being spun. One source close to the show said, "He's been in this business for decades. He's not used to losing control of the narrative." But maybe the most telling reaction came from the audience members who had been there in person. Interviews with a few revealed a different vibe than the online frenzy. "It didn't feel like a joke anymore," one said. "You could tell both of them actually believed what they were saying." And that, perhaps, was the real shock. In a world of scripted TV, the Elon-Jimmy clash felt raw, unscripted, and combustible. People weren't just watching a celebrity interview, they were watching a collision between two visions of America. It was messy, it was personal, and it was only the beginning.